Hi, everyone. I'm so glad I get to introduce you to one of my favorite books of Beetles and Angels by Maui Asghedom. It is our last book of the semester. It's a boy's remarkable journey from a refugee camp to Harvard. This book is considered an autobiography. An autobiography is a book um, written about a person by the person. So it's their own life story or their own experiences that they're writing about. So Maui Asghedom is our author. He's telling about his life. So before we begin, we got to talk about what a refugee is. So the official word is a person who flees for refuge or safety, especially to a foreign country, as in time of political upheaval, war, or sometimes even famine. The word we need to focus on is this flees word. You see, a refugee is someone who has to leave now. It is a sense of urgency. They have to drop everything and leave their home, or they could be facing prison or persecution or even death. So, why does Maui and his family have to leave? It's because of a civil war that was going on between two countries in East Africa, Eritrea and Ethiopia. It's a civil war that had lasted for 30 years. And just to put that into perspective, our own American Civil War lasted for 10. And in this time period, it displaced millions of people and their families. So, to give you perspective about where we're talking, you have a picture of the African continent. Africa has 54 countries, and I put a square around the three countries that we're mainly talking about. And then I blew it up, I zoomed in, and we talk about Ethiopia, Eritrea, and Sudan. And these little red stars are the trek that Maui and his family had to make by foot to all these different places to stay out of harm's way. So let me introduce you to his family. First, we have his older sister, his mom and his dad. And then down here is our author, Maui. And then we have his younger brother, Merit, and Tewald, his older brother. So after a number of years in the refugee camp, the family is finally given asylum in the United States. So they get on an airplane and they go all the way over to here. And if this star were real, it would be sitting right on top of us because they land in Wheaton, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago, just like us. We're right here, and this is where Wheaton is. It's just down the road from us. So could you imagine going from a refugee camp, that's all you've known your whole life, to an affluent suburb of Chicago? Affluent is another word for a rich suburb. It would be culture shock for you. Imagine walking into a grocery store for the first time and seeing all this food. I mean, the refugee camp, you had to fight for every morsel of food you had, and sometimes you didn't have food. Could you imagine seeing traffic and trains and signs you couldn't read because they were in English? And just the fast-paced world of our culture. Could you imagine walking into an apartment and for the first time seeing a kitchen where there's a refrigerator and there's a sink with running water and a stove, and seeing a bathroom for the first time? I remember visiting a cousin who had a bidet in his bathroom, and I had no idea what that was because we don't have bidets in our culture. That's something from Europe. And then could you imagine having to go to school and navigating everything that comes along with going to school? And so our book is about Maui and his family and all the obstacles and the challenges they had to face, not only in their refugee camp, but then once they came here to America. But we know that it ends happily because it's an inspirational story about how he overcomes everything and ends up graduating from one of the most prestigious schools in our country, Harvard. And so I hope you enjoy the book as much as I do and find it a source of inspiration. So happy reading, everybody.